What if death isn't a destination but a mirror? What if it isn't a silent void, but a thunderous echo of the life you just lived, a reality constructed entirely from the contents of your own mind? For more than 1,000 years, whispers of a sealed manuscript have persisted among mystics and scholars. Not a book of prayers, but a map, a precise, terrifyingly detailed guide to the first 49 days that follow your final breath. It reveals that the moment of death isn't an ending. It's an awakening into a hyper-real state where thoughts manifest instantly, where every hidden fear and unresolved desire takes form. It describes a journey, a test of awareness that determines not reward or punishment, but whether you break free from the cycle of existence or are pulled back into another life, completely unaware of the choice you just made. Most souls fail this test, not because they are unworthy, but because they are unprepared. They don't recognize the landscape. They don't see the illusions for what they are, reflections of their own consciousness. By the time they understand the rules of the game, it's already over. What we are about to explore isn't just a forgotten piece of ancient wisdom. It's a key to understanding that the 49 days after your life might be infinitely more important than the 80 years you spent living it. This is not philosophy. It's a forgotten technology for navigating the ultimate journey of consciousness. Imagine the moment. The machinery of the body falls silent. The rhythm of the heart ceases. The lungs take their final bow. But you do not cease. Consciousness does not simply switch off like a light bulb. Instead, a profound shift occurs, a sense of weightlessness, of separation. You might perceive the room around you, the scene you just left behind, but from a perspective that is no longer bound by physical eyes. There is a strange, dreamlike familiarity to it, yet an undeniable finality. There is no cord to pull you back this time. Your mind will scramble for an explanation, for a familiar anchor in a sea of radical change. It will search for the comfort of known sensations, but find none. And in that silent, untethered moment, it happens. A light begins to dawn. Not a light from an external source, not like the sun or a lamp, but a light that seems to emanate from the very fabric of reality itself. It is described in ancient texts as the clear light of reality, an infinitely radiant, pure, and overwhelming luminescence. It is both blinding and beautiful, a presence so powerful it feels like the source of all existence. This is not a vision. It is the raw, unfiltered nature of consciousness itself, unveiled. The operating system of the universe revealed, now that the user interface of your five senses has been shut down. To merge with this light, to recognize it as your own true nature and surrender to it without hesitation, is to achieve immediate liberation. It is the direct path, the ultimate shortcut beyond all cycles of birth and death. The test is offered the instant you die, but almost no one passes. Why? Because a lifetime of conditioning screams in protest. The ego, the sense of I that you have cultivated for decades, panics. Faced with total dissolution into this infinite light, it recoils. It clings to its name, its memories, its loves, its wounds, its unfinished business. Instead of embracing the infinite, it desperately seeks the familiar. And the moment that fear takes hold, the moment you turn away from the light, the test is failed. The clear screen of reality begins to flicker, and the projections start to load. The journey into the labyrinth of the mind has just begun. This transition is the ultimate paradox. The mind, which has spent a lifetime building a fortress of identity, suddenly finds the fortress has vanished, and it is standing naked in the center of the cosmos. It's like a librarian who has dedicated his life to a single precious book, the story of you, only to watch the library itself go up in flames, realizing too late that the stories were never as important as the silence between the words. That clear light is the silence. It is the canvas upon which your entire life was painted. For a single, timeless moment, you are offered the chance to see not the painting, but the nature of the canvas itself. It is a profound homecoming. There are no questions to be asked, because you have become the answer to all of them. Here there is only pure, undiluted isness, but the character in the story fights back. The ego, the protagonist of your life's novel, screams that to dissolve into the vastness is to be truly annihilated. It cannot comprehend a state of being that is not defined by its own narrative, its own struggles, its own perceived separateness. It desperately scrambles through the ashes of the burning library, searching for its one cherished page. This is the great cosmic irony. The soul may spend lifetimes seeking union, peace, and enlightenment, only to be offered all of it in the very first second after death and refuse it out of sheer habit. We are addicted to form, addicted to story, addicted to being someone. It seems the oldest advice in the world is to know thyself. Funny how that's still the hardest final boss to beat. And so in that moment of refusal, the perfect mirror of reality fractures. The silent, omniscient library is suddenly filled with a single desperate whisper, "Who am I?" The universe, which only reflects what is projected upon it, begins to answer. It echoes your own confusion back at you, not with silence, but with the first shadows of a new story. The first illusion is born, not from a demon or a god, but from your own unanswered question. This intermediate state, this gap between the world you knew and the one yet to be created, has a name. In the Tibetan traditions, it is called the Bardo, and the forbidden manuscript we spoke of is its definitive guide, the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But this text is not a book of scripture to be taken on faith. It is a manual for cosmic navigation, a startlingly precise cartography of the inner world, for a moment when the outer world has completely dissolved. And its central premise is something echoed across countless ancient traditions. Picture Plato's allegory of the cave. He described prisoners chained in darkness, believing the flickering shadows on a stone wall were the entirety of reality. Our lives, in many ways, are spent within that cave, mistaking the projections of our senses for the truth. Death, in this analogy, is the moment the chains shatter, and we are forced out into the blinding sun of the real. The clear light is that sun, and our recoil is the instinctive reaction of a soul that has only ever known shadows, unable to bear the unfiltered truth of its own nature. This is where the wisdom traditions converge. From the Vedic sages who spoke of Maya, the grand illusion of the material world, to the Gnostic mystics who warned that our reality was a subtle trap for consciousness, they all pointed to one radical conclusion. The architect of your prison, and therefore the key to your liberation, is your own mind. The Bardo, then, is not a preset location. It is an empty stage. And upon this stage, your consciousness, now untethered from a physical brain, begins to project its own grand play, using the props, characters, and hidden scripts it has rehearsed for an entire lifetime. The journey through this realm lasts a symbolic 49 days, unfolding in distinct, predictable stages. But what happens when a mind, conditioned by a lifetime of unresolved emotions, attachments, and fears, is suddenly given the power to manifest its contents instantly? What kind of worlds does it build for itself? Think of your consciousness in life as a single, brilliant beam of light, forced through the complex projector of the human body and brain. It illuminates one frame at a time, creating the linear, predictable movie we call reality. But in the Bardo, the projector is shattered. That same light, that same creative power, now explodes in all directions at once. It doesn't project a single, coherent film. It projects a chaotic, holographic storm of every frame ever created, every impulse ever felt. This is why the ancient Egyptians were so meticulous in their own manuals for the afterlife, like the Book of Coming Forth by Day. They weren't just writing prayers, they were creating psychological anchors, maps of symbols and archetypes designed to give the soul a coherent narrative to cling to amidst the post-mortem chaos. They understood that without a map, the soul would simply be lost in the wilderness of its own unexamined self. The journey through the Bardo is therefore a journey through your own personal mythology. The gods and demons you encounter are not beings from some distant heaven or hell. They are the archetypal forces you gave power to throughout your life, now appearing on the stage. The quiet resentment you held against a loved one might manifest as a grotesque, pursuing demon. The unconditional love you once felt might appear as a radiant, welcoming deity. If these ideas resonate with you, consider subscribing so we can continue to explore these mysteries together. The terrifying part is that the soul, in its disoriented state, doesn't recognize its own creations. It believes the demons are real. It believes the heavens are real. It reacts to them with fear or desire, and in doing so, gives them more and more power, strengthening the very illusions that bind it. It's the ultimate feedback loop. Your mind creates the reality. Your emotions react to that reality, and your reactions solidify its existence. Breaking this loop is the central challenge of the entire journey. The journey into the Bardo begins not with terror, but with a deceptive tranquility. Once the clear light has faded, the soul drifts in a neutral, dreamlike state. But this quiet does not last. Soon the first projections begin to bloom in the vast emptiness. These are the visions of the peaceful deities, radiant beings of light, forms of breathtaking beauty and compassion, emerge from the fabric of awareness. They don't speak in words, but their presence communicates a profound sense of peace, wisdom, and homecoming. One might see figures that resemble angels, enlightened masters or divine guides, each one emanating an unconditional love that feels like a balm for the soul. This is the first test of recognition. The manual is clear. These beings are not external saviors coming to rescue you. They are the radiant reflections of your own highest potential. They are the archetypes of your own innate wisdom, compassion, and clarity, now visible. The practice here is not to worship them, but to recognize them as you. To merge with them is to reclaim the purest parts of your own consciousness and achieve a subtler form of liberation. But again, the habits of a lifetime interfere. The soul, feeling unworthy, hesitates. It doubts. It creates a separation. That is divine, and I am me. This hesitation is all it takes. The moment of opportunity passes, and then the stage darkens. The luminous beings flicker and fade. The serene landscapes distort, and from the shadows of the mind, the second wave of projections emerges. The wrathful deities. These figures are the embodiment of terror, monstrous, multi-headed beings with eyes of fire, roaring with inhuman voices, brandishing weapons of psychic torment. They are relentless, chaotic, and seem to embody pure predatory rage. They are the stuff of nightmares made manifest, and they appear to be hunting the soul. Herein lies the second, more difficult test. The natural instinct is to flee, to scream, to fight back, but this is the trap. The manual's instruction is radical. Do not run. Recognize that these terrifying entities are also projections of your own mind. They are the personification of your own unresolved anger, your hidden guilt, your buried fears, your own violence now mirrored back at you in its rawest form. The practice is not to defeat these demons, but to understand them. To ask, what part of me does this monster represent? The moment you recognize them as your own energy, the moment you stop feeding them with your fear, their power vanishes. They dissolve like mist in the morning sun. But for the soul that believes they are real, this stage becomes a terrifying self-inflicted ordeal that can feel as if it lasts for an eternity. This is the precise reason why Tibetan Buddhist masters, and indeed mystics from many traditions, dedicate their entire lives to the practice of meditation. It is not merely for relaxation or focus in this life. It is rigorous, hardcore training for the bardo. Think of it this way. What is meditation in its deepest sense? It is the practice of sitting still and observing the contents of your own mind without reacting to them. You watch thoughts of anger, desire, peace, and boredom arise and pass away without clinging to them, without running from them. You train yourself moment by moment to recognize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness observing the thoughts. Now imagine that training amplified 1,000 times. The bardo is the ultimate meditation session, with one critical difference. There is no longer a physical body to ground you, and your thoughts now have the power to create a fully immersive reality. The peaceful deities. They are like the blissful, serene states one might experience in deep meditation. A novice meditator will cling to these states thinking, I've achieved it, and in that clinging, the state vanishes. The trained mind simply acknowledges the peace and lets it go. The wrathful deities, they are the eruption of the subconscious, the repressed traumas, the hidden anxieties, the shadow self that we spend our entire lives avoiding. In meditation, these may surface as disturbing images or painful emotions. The untrained mind panics, stops the meditation and distracts itself. The trained mind learns to sit with that darkness, to breathe into it, and to recognize it as just another cloud passing through the vast sky of awareness. This is the recommended practice, the secret technology hidden in plain sight. The act of observing your own inner world, of familiarizing yourself with your inner demons and angels before you die, is the single most important preparation one can undertake. You are quite literally studying for the final exam. Each moment of mindful awareness, each refusal to be swept away by an emotional reaction, is a rep in the gym for your soul. You are building the muscle of non-reaction, the very muscle that will allow you to face the bardo's phantoms without flinching and recognize them for what they are, empty, powerful, and ultimately, you. This great mirror is where the modern concept of karma, is stripped of all superstition. It is revealed not as a cosmic system of rewards and punishments, but as a fundamental law of consciousness, as impersonal and as absolute as gravity. It is the universe's accounting system, and in death the books must be balanced, and the currency is not morality, but raw experience. Think about the implications. What if every single moment of your life was not a fleeting event, but a permanent inscription in a kind of cosmic record? What some traditions have called the Akashic field. Not a story written in a book, but a vibrational signature embedded in the fabric of existence itself. The life review, then, is not about remembering the past. It is about plugging your awareness directly into this field and experiencing the playback of your own unique frequency. This shatters the illusion of the separate self entirely. In that moment, the boundary between you and everyone else dissolves into pure fiction. You become the people you hurt. You become the people you helped. The lesson is brutally simple. There was never another. Every act was an act committed against a different version of yourself. This raises an even more profound and unsettling question. If this is the immutable law of the cosmos, what does that say about our existence? Is the entire universe a vast, intricate empathy machine designed to teach consciousness the consequences of its own choices over and over through countless lives until it finally learns the one great lesson? And what of the soul that emerges from this review? It is no longer a neutral observer. It is now deeply conditioned, saturated with the dominant emotional tone of its own life's impact. A soul steeped in the pain it caused will carry that weight, that vibration into the final stage. A soul illuminated by the joy it created will carry that lightness. This isn't a sentence passed down by a judge. It's the soul's own center of gravity, pulling it toward its next inevitable destination. The life review is over. The soul is now fully saturated with the truth of its own karma, the undiluted emotional weight of its past existence. It stands at the final crossroads, the ultimate moment of decision. The bardo is nearing its end, but the final test is the most subtle and, for many, the most deceptive. The visions that now appear are not monstrous demons or radiant gods. They are far more powerful because they are far more familiar. Glimpses of worlds begin to appear. The soul might see visions of parents embracing, of a warm and inviting home, of a life that feels safe and recognizable. It might feel an overwhelming pull, a deep instinctual longing for the comfort of a body, for the familiarity of a family, for the anchor of a new life. These are not random hallucinations. These are the doorways to the next incarnation, shaped and presented by the karmic winds generated during the life review. The soul, exhausted by the trials of the bardo and heavy with the unresolved attachments of its past life, sees these visions not as a choice, but as a refuge, a port in the storm. It allows itself to be drawn in by desire, by fear of the unknown void, by the simple, powerful pull of existence. The moment the soul latches onto one of these visions, the moment it chooses attachment over awareness, the process is instantaneous. It is swept into a new womb, a new body, a new life. A great forgetting descends, a veil is drawn, and the memories of the bardo, of the clear light, of the lessons learned, are all but erased. The cycle begins again. The game resets, but the player has no memory of ever having played before. And now we must ask the real question: so what? What does this ancient map mean for us, here and now? The implication is staggering. The choices that determine your trajectory after death are not made in some ethereal post-mortem state. They are being made right now. Every time you choose to react with unconscious anger instead of mindful patience, you are strengthening the wrathful deity that awaits you. Every time you chase a fleeting desire, believing it will bring lasting happiness, you are conditioning your soul to grasp for the visions of rebirth. Every time you refuse to look at your own shadow, your own guilt, your own complicity in the suffering of others, you are adding weight to the karmic review. This knowledge doesn't ask for belief, it demands responsibility. It transforms life from a waiting room into a training ground. It suggests that the real salvation is not something granted to you. It is a state of awareness that must be diligently, painstakingly built, moment by moment, choice by choice. We are not just living, we are actively composing the symphony or the cacophony that will be our only companion in the silence after the final breath. This final moment reveals the ultimate paradox of free will. By this stage, the soul has so little free will left. It has become a creature of pure momentum, an accumulation of every habit, tendency, and attachment it cultivated in life. To ask a soul that has spent 80 years clinging to comfort, security, and identity to suddenly choose the vast, formless freedom of liberation over the promise of a warm, familiar womb is like asking a river to flow uphill. It goes against its very nature. This is the responsibility that this knowledge awakens. It is not about becoming a good person to score points for some cosmic judge. It is about becoming a conscious person to preserve the possibility of choice when it matters most. It is about purifying the water of your own consciousness, so that when it flows towards the ocean of liberation, not back into the swamp of cyclic existence. Think of it. The inability to sit with the discomfort of your own mind for 5 minutes in life becomes the inability to resist the pull of rebirth in death. The addiction to the endless scroll of distraction on a screen becomes the addiction that pulls you into another lifetime of distraction. The refusal to take responsibility for your emotional state now becomes the absolute certainty of being consumed by that emotional state later. The Bardo is not a new world with new rules. It is this world with the stabilizers removed. And this is why this knowledge can feel so subversive, so unsettling. It dismantles the comforting idea that you can live unconsciously and then, somehow, be saved at the end. It places the full, terrifying, liberating weight of your entire eternal journey squarely on the shoulders of your present moment awareness. The great test isn't coming. You are in the middle of it, and you have been since the moment you were born. So what is the final truth about death? It is not a finality, but a revelation. Death does not change you. It only reveals you. The Bardo is not a place you go to. It is a mirror that shows you what you have always been. Everything you experience after your last breath, the light, the gods, the demons, the karmic review, the pull toward a new life, is nothing more than a reflection of the consciousness you cultivated while you were here. A life lived in fear creates a fearful afterlife. A life lived in grasping attachment leads to an afterlife of desperate clinging. A life lived unconsciously leads to a journey of confusion, a reactive drift back into the same cycles over and over again. But a life lived with awareness, with a trained mind that knows how to observe without attachment, that has familiarized itself with its own inner landscape, transforms the Bardo from a trial into an opportunity. It becomes a navigable space, a transition to be undertaken with clarity and purpose. This is the secret that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. The preparation for death is the mastery of life. The technology for navigating the afterlife is the practice of conscious awareness right here, right now. It's the understanding that this life isn't just a random series of events. It is a sacred, high-stakes training ground for the soul. The ultimate question then is not whether there is life after death. The real question is there life before death? Are we truly awake right now? Or are we already ghosts, drifting through a life of programmed routines and borrowed beliefs, simply rehearsing for the confusion of the Bardo to come? This ancient manuscript doesn't just offer a map for the dead. It offers a wake-up call for the living. Liked this journey? Hit subscribe for more mysteries. And that's our hunt for now, a wild mix of documented history and tantalizing what-ifs based on bibliographical sources. What do you think?